Hello. This is just a practice, but I thought I'd record it. I'm going to be giving a talk tomorrow at Quantico at the Marine Corps Museum. I've been invited as a guest speaker to be part of their Combat Art Symposium. And so I thought I would go ahead and record one of my practice sessions here because I don't think it's going to be live streamed or recorded in any way while I'm there. So I'm in my own studio. I'm not in Quantico, but this is the talk that I plan to give when I'm there tomorrow. So I've never spoken before, and I'm representing the Coast Guard Art Program and the Sept62024TalkAtQuantico Club in New York City, and I'm proud to do that. And hopefully all goes well tomorrow, but this is my, I'll be dressed, a little fancier, and I'll be in an actual auditorium, and things will be a little bit different, but this is my attempt to practice that talk before I give it tomorrow. So without further ado, let me go ahead and begin. Hello, I'm Debra Keirce, and I am a Coast Guard Art Program artist. I know that I am because I have this patch, and I got this when I applied. I learned in 2020 about the COGAP program through the Sept62024TalkAtQuantico Club, and the Coast Guard Art Program, or COGAP, is a partnership with Sept62024TalkAtQuantico Club, and it's been around for 35 years. The Sept62024TalkAtQuantico Club has been around for 140. But let me tell you, if you decide to join the COGAP program, you may find yourself doing things like painting stuff you never thought you would before. This is the latest off of my easel, and it's a painting of a merchant ship. And you can see that I paint in layers and I paint in lots of detail, but I never pictured myself painting a merchant ship until I happened to see one through one of my COGAP experiences and realized what a big story they have. So this has a ripple effect, and it changes your life. It really does. So the Coast Guard Art Program, these are my slides, by the way. I'm not going to do slides. I'm just going to show you the pictures of my slides. So not as good a quality as if you were watching my PowerPoint, but still. The Coast Guard Art Program is there to create a situation that gives education and outreach to the public. And I have to say that this civilian, I have no military ties, so this civilian has been educated probably just as much or more than anybody else through this experience of being a COGAP artist. And it's working its magic for sure. It's a legacy that I didn't know that I wanted. We have art in offices and places all over the world and all over the country. In fact, I believe that the 2024 Coast Guard Art Program collection is going to be in Port Huron, Michigan, in a maritime museum there, right about the time that I'm giving this talk. And today the collection has about 2,000 works in it. I'm proud to say that 11 of them are mine. I applied with 12 works, and I'll show you the one that did not get in, but I'm very proud of the 11 that I have in the collection. I brought some catalogs, and you're welcome to help yourself. Please take them home, otherwise they'll wind up in the trash, and I don't want that. There's a lot of really amazing art in these catalogs, and I've got some from a couple of different years and also some newsletters from our COGAP program. But I'm very proud of this catalog, the 2023 catalog, because that painting on the cover, that's mine. I actually won the Best in Show award, which is the George Gray Award, and I know that because I got this plaque for it, which is exciting. It's a really cool plaque because my name is spelled with the E before the I in my last name, and nobody ever gets that right, but they did. So I love this George Gray Best in Show. It's the only award given every year, is the Best in Show award. And in 2022, I won it, so I'm on the cover of this catalog. But if you look in the catalog, you'll see there's like 10 or 15 other pieces that are just as deserving of Best in Show. And mine resonated, my story resonated with the jury panel. One of the people in the jury panel was actually at a cleanup in Hawaii, which is what my painting is depicting, and said, "Oh, this shows exactly how it looks when you're doing this." So that's why mine got chosen. I also got a coin. I didn't even know y'all had coins, and this is such an honor. Captain Zeta Merchant was head of the Staten Island location at the time, and so there's a Statue of Liberty on here. I haven't taken it out of its case because I don't want it to tarnish, but I got that. I got the plaque. Also, everybody that has art in a collection gets a service commendation. And these are given to us by people high up in command. Like a couple years ago, they had the commandant, Linda Fagan, come. And then usually it's a rear admiral that comes. And every single one of them, when they talk about their experience looking at the show, they talk about how they're moved, how it brings emotion. And I always joke, but I'm really not joking, that I want to make admirals cry. And so I'm really proud to have 11 pieces in the collection that do that make people feel things. Let me take you back to my first painting I ever had in the COGAP collection. This is the one I created, the first one I created in 2020 for the 2021 collection. And it's 3 musicians that are still active today and performing their art all over the world. And I was so blessed that this painting was hanging behind the 2 musicians that we had on July 11th when we had our reception for the 2024 collection at Selma Gundy Club. This piece was hanging behind them in the alcove where the flutist and the harpist were playing their music. And so my plan, and this is breaking news, nobody knows this yet, so you're the first. My plan is to create a painting that is these 2 performers, a harpist and a flutist, performing their art in front of my art, and submit that for the 2025 collection. How meta is that? The second painting I did for the 2021 collection is my husband's favorite. It's called Friends. And all of these, you can find them on DVids if you want to go in and look just by the titles. But this was a North Carolina rescue, and I'm showing the story here about how the teams work and they collaborate with each other to save not only the humans, but also our furry family members. The third piece that I did in 2020 for 2021's collection is Hoisted. And here, this has become a theme of mine. What I'm trying to show you is the juxtaposition between the beauty. Everywhere you look when you're a coastie, there's likely to be a beautiful landscape. And then you're doing something very dangerous and you have to be very focused. And so you don't get to take that in. In these static images, I can depict both the beauty that's all around and the dangerous operation that's taking place. And so that's that juxtaposition between beauty and danger that I love to portray. Remember I said that one of my pieces did not get in, and I did 3 pieces each year just because I didn't know, like, you know, do they favor the coastie's work? You know, if I do a subject that's the same as a coastie, is theirs going to get in instead of mine? Or you know, do they only take coasties and they let me into the COGAP program, but they don't let any of mine into the collection? I had no idea. So I thought I'd up my odds by doing 3 each year, and I've just done that every year since 2021. And so that's why I have so many in the collection now. But this piece, it did not get in. And it's ironic because I called it In a Word, and I think it's got the most story of all of them. And it's about 5 people that are kind of in the background doing what they do so that the action shots that everybody paints that has paintings in the collection can happen. And this piece, while it didn't get in because they did not approve of the collage type or contemporary type of composition, it actually did not go to waste because my husband is friends with Rear Admiral Eric Jones, who's now retired, but at the time he was not. And this hung in his office in DC in headquarters for a couple of years, and now it's part of his private collection. In 2022, the second piece that I painted for the collection is called The Colors. And I cried the whole time I painted this piece. I don't know what it is about the host posting of the colors, but maybe raising 2 Eagle Scouts. But to me, this gets me every time. And so I thought, if I'm emoting, just thinking about painting this, it's something that I need to create. And sure enough, it did make it into the collection. So it is appreciated by those people as well. And then there's the piece I told you about that won the Best in Show. I called this Nurdles and Ghost Nets and Flotsam. And I love that title. I thought, gosh, education's part of what we're trying to do here. And people will be Googling nurdle. What's a nurdle? What's a ghost net? What's a flotsam? But it's kind of like when you have a new puppy and you give it to the new owner. When you give your art to the COGAP program, you're giving away your copyright. You're giving away the piece of art. You don't even get to pick the frame. Some of the frames they've chosen, I'm not too fond of myself. But you know, you can't tell the new puppy owner, you know, what to feed that puppy. So this puppy is now called Clean Up in Hawaii. And I kind of go, mwah, mwah, mwah. I like my title better. So if you're looking for it on DVids, it's Clean Up in Hawaii. And if you're looking at it in my website, it's Nurdles and Ghost Nuts and Flotsam. But it's the incredibly, for me, overwhelming story of the Coast Guard cleaning up over 10,000 pounds of debris out of the Hawaii waterways. But you got to realize we've got over 95,000 miles of coast and all kinds of inland waters, and we only have 40,000 people on the Coast Guard and 11 missions. And so to me, just this work alone is humongous. So how they get it done and keep our waterways safe for every place that American vessels are transported to is beyond me. Another really amazing thing happened when I won that Best in Show. I found myself in this pinch me moment. I'm standing here out in North Charleston on base in front of the U.S. cutter Stone, 418 feet with a couple hundred souls on board. And it's the latest in our Legend class. It's the latest in our security class of cutters. And I got to go and spend a week living at sea with the crew. Who gets to do that when they're 60 years old? I mean, I was overwhelmed when Marianne Bader, who you know because she's talked here before, called me and asked me if I wanted to be part of this deployment. A Navy captain who was retired came and saw our exhibition at the Selma Gundy Club in the Skylight Gallery there and said, I love this, these stories that you know these paintings tell, they really moved me. What can I do to contribute? And so they said, well, would you like to sponsor an artist to go on a deployment? And that artist would be me. And so I got to go on this deployment with the crew of the U.S. Cutter Stone, and I am forever grateful for this experience. The first thing when I get on board, my point of contact tells me, don't touch the knife edge, because if you touch the knife edge as you're going back up and down between floors, or floors, decks, call them decks. You're gonna have maybe a situation where, because we're rocking so much, that manhole cover, which is 450 pounds, slams down and amputates your hands. And I'm thinking, whoa, painter, hands, I need my hands. But I'm thinking the head gets it first, at least going down. Don't we worry more about the head? I don't know. But I'm not asking questions. I'm not going to get in anyone's way. I'm not going to be a liability. And so I'm not going to touch the knife edge. And I'm looking around, and all these 20-something coasties are going up and down in between decks. And they're making it look like a game of whack-a-mole. It's so easy, you know. But then you do it and you realize, oh my gosh, I have to be balanced. And the older you get, they're always telling you to hold the railing or the grip. There's no grip or railing within a hand, you know, that I can reach. And so I'm having to go down these steps, and you're in a fetal position until your feet find the steps. And then as you go down them, they're at a slope. So then you wind up in a bit of a back bend position. I'm like, this body doesn't do this anymore. So my first impression as a civilian on board is how the physicality. So you guys all have to be so physically fit just to exist in this military environment. And then just to add salt to the wound, the coasties are putting on their gear, and they've got, you know, gas tanks on their back, and they're carrying hoses over their shoulders, and they're still doing the whack-a-mole thing like it's nothing, like making it look so easy. I never got good at this. It was never pretty for me. What was pretty was every time I looked out of the boat, this shadow, I would paint that. I haven't yet, but it draws me in. It's so beautiful. I did have an opportunity to sketch a few people, and mostly I did this really just to engage them in conversation. I gave them the sketches afterward, but this was my point of contact, John Felix, and he was on the bridge moving around. I didn't time myself, but they're like 5, 10, 15-minute sketches just to capture a likeness. And outside, the sky was so black. The stars were bright and the sky was so black. Never saw that black a sky before. Another thing that amazed me was I loved being in the mess hall. The vibe there, just all the respect and the camaraderie. Even when you're putting away your dirty tray, if nobody's at the window, you stick your head in and say thank you. I learned that everyone in the Coast Guard has to do at least a month of service duty in the mess hall. I think everyone should have to do at least a month of service in their life, in my opinion. This is one of the meals that I was gifted by the head chef when he found out that I was vegetarian. I brought my own protein bars and apples and things. I was good, but he went ahead and made me acorn squash this evening, and I was so touched. They all made me feel so welcome and so a part of their family and so a part of their crew. It was a wonderful experience. This was Gonzo. I sketched him one day. We were eating lunch across from each other, and the boat was rocking so much that the food was sliding on the tables. I didn't expect for the crew to get to see the tender side of them, but there was this fish in a bowl, in a jar, and I'm like, who brought their pet fish with them? They said, no, we named her Tasha. This is a shrimp we found in the inline filter, intake filter, and we put her in this bowl, and we're going to let her out when we get to port so she can live her fishy life and not get sucked back up into the filter again. Who does that? The Coast Guards do, service people do. This is me sitting in the, I think I'm in the hangar, wearing my safety vest and hard hat and going, I blend. I so never blended. I really never blended. But they knew where I was every single minute on the ship. I was in places where I'm like, how the heck did you find me here? But somehow they all knew. I don't know how it was creepy. I don't know how they did that. This is one of my roommates, and there were 6 bunks, 4 lockers, 2 desks, and 1 shower that you could go like this and your elbows would touch either side. I knew that the bunks would be tight in terms of space, but I don't know, quite honestly, just being there a week, if I could live even with family members, let alone strangers. And I know these girls had no choice. The captain said, this stranger is coming and going to be your roommate for the week. But they were so gracious, and it was so nice of them to clean out an entire locker for me to put my carry-on in, and yeah, I just can't imagine living for weeks or months at sea in that tiny of a space. But everywhere you look outside the ship, there's this great expanse. And so it was this dichotomy of, really claustrophobic conditions and then just this wide agoraphobic kind of view. And this was another of my roommates, and she was amazing as well. Another thing that surprised me, I knew that it would be tight down in the engine space, but in the 80s and 90s, I was a design engineer for biotech companies, and then for Eli Lilly and Company, I was leading design teams that did designs for both my manufacturing facilities, and so a lot of what I saw down in the engine room was familiar to me. But the ergonomics, like there are no splash guards on the engine casing, and so you've got, when you're changing out the filters, you've got diesel fuel going everywhere and nothing to catch it, so you're using buckets. The experience was very interesting, and I mad respect for everyone who maintains our assets, because it's not an easy job. I also learned that everywhere you go as in the Coast Guard, you have to know how to carry lines, be it ropes or hoses or electrical lines. They're always, but either as a group or individually, they're managing these lines. They get tangled pretty easily, so there is definitely an art to it. Now keep in mind that while I was on my deployment, I had already started 3 paintings at home. So I paint slow, and the deployment was in November of 2022. There was no way that I could get paintings done for the first week of January, because I'm waiting for layers to dry. It takes me a long time to get my work done. So I had these 3 paintings that I had to go back and finish. And when I did, I had a whole new perspective for having lived at sea with these folks. For example, I learned that the Coast Guard is not terrestrial. We're like this. You get to bed at the end of the day and you're like, why am I so tired? And it's because you've been doing this dance all day where you're just trying to stay upright. Well, everything is in motion. So I'm painting these static images, and I'm thinking I loved this composition because the red and the black being so monochromatic that the dog is kind of like, where's Waldo in there? But now I'm thinking, gosh, I can't even get most dogs to shake hands or go to the groomers without getting anxious, let alone being an integral part of a rescue team and then hoisted up into a helicopter while these ropes are swinging and in motion. And so this was just, it added a whole new perspective and level of difficulty. Similarly, this painting that I have in the 2023 collection is called Protecting the Endangered, and they're in a small boat, which Commander Brinkley asked me if I wanted to go out in the small boats, and I said yes, but it was too rough. And so he said, we'll wait for the seas to calm down a bit, which they never did. So I never got to go out. But I watched these boats out in the ocean, and even the smallest waves, they're bouncing around like crazy. So these people are rescuing sea turtles out, which are like 150 pounds each, from these ghost nets. How are they not falling off the end of this moving boat, small boat? So all of this to me now, I'm looking at it in a new light. This was the third painting that I have in the 2023 collection. I called it Unhooked. I didn't even know until I painted this that this Coast Guard every year has to change out the buoys in the fall and in the spring, kind of like your wardrobe. And again, you know, with all those miles of coastline and a limited staff, what a huge job this is. Let alone they're on top of these ladders that I now realize either the ladders or the equipment, you know, something's moving in this picture. And the ladders are so tall that I wouldn't even put one out anymore in my backyard and climb to the top of it. And they're working with such heavy equipment. So I just, you know, mad respect for the danger and the beauty and that juxtaposition in these paintings. But let's go back to my first night on the Cutter Stone. They went ahead and called us to muster on the flight deck. And so I'm learning about, okay, what's a muster, you know? And I'm still adjusting because I thought that creepy lighting, the red and the teal, was just like a Hollywood thing that they did for alien movies and stuff. And now I'm realizing that no, when it gets, you know, to sunset, the red and teal lights go on all over the ship. And you're operating in that environment, which is, it's atmospheric and beautiful, but at the same time kind of creepy, reminding me of the alien movies. So I'm adjusting to all of this, and I'm holding on to the railing because, you know, I figure that's a safe thing to do. And I'm going, wow, my hand looks pretty. I like painting hands, and I'm taking this picture. And someone taps me on the shoulder and says, Debra, do you see how everyone else is in the middle of the flight deck? It's kind of rocky today, and you know, it's a slippery surface we're standing on, and if you were to slip and fall, that net may or may not stop you from falling into that dark black ocean over there. Okay, so I'm on the ship for just a couple of hours, and already I'm doing things that are unsafe. I'm like, I'm trying to be good. So I move my butt into the middle of the flight deck, and I see this image, which is the first of the paintings that I painted, inspired by my time on the Cutter Stone for the 2024 collection, and I called this one Muster. And in this painting, you can see, I loved that you can see the likenesses with just silhouettes of people, and you know, creepy but beautiful lighting everywhere. And then, you know, now that I told you the story, just off on the other side of that net, of that railing, is intense danger waiting to suck you in. So again, it's the juxtaposition between the beauty and the danger. The funny thing is, looking at off the fantail at sunset, you see this black ocean, and it looks inviting. It doesn't look dangerous at all, does it? It's calm, it's peaceful, it's beautiful. This is the second painting that I did for 2024's collection, and I called it Night Shift. And this is it's a story about my own naivety, because I got into my bunk I got into my pajamas and then got into the bunk that first night, and I'm all tucked in, and I'm going, gosh, you know, I'm so tired from doing that dance all day, just trying to stay upright. But so many wonderful memories. I mean, I'm just so inspired, and you know, what's tomorrow going to bring? And I'm thinking all these thoughts, and then I hear over the pipe, they start with announcing the training drills. So just because I'm in my bunk doesn't mean the work stops. No, they were having to dress up or dress out in their gear all night long, doing these training, you know, a mannequin overboard here, and you know, there's a mock explosion here and a mock fire there, and they have to problem solve to figure out what to do in these situations. They were so weary and tired by I'm sure that they would have rather have been in their bunks, and this is how it went for the entire week. And so here I am, you know, awareness raised now, because we had waited for 3 days for a hurricane to leave the area and before we deployed. And so the captain had made the decision, this is not time sensitive, no reason to take our crew out into the sea in the middle of a hurricane. So I'm thinking this is going to be an easy peasy kind of a deployment, and everyone will be relaxed, and it'll just be fun and won't have to work very hard. Wrong. You all work, even on the simplest deployments, you all work so hard for us 24/7. And I thank you for your service, and I thank you so much for doing that to keep me safe. It's not a 9-to-5 job. This is the fantail at sunrise. This is the view off the fantail. And again, beautiful, inviting, not at all as dangerous as it actually is. This is the painting that I did, and this is my favorite of all that in the collection. This was for 2024. I called it Start Your Engines. And I love this because it's like when you say, wherever you are in the world, look up at the moon and I'll be looking at it too. It's one of those where I was taking pictures off in the front of the ship and I heard the rumble of the engines. So I turned around and started shooting at the smokestacks. And everyone, after I did that, said, "Did you get it? Did you get it?" And I realized everyone, if they could, were looking like me up at the smokestacks for that first plume of the oil to burn off of the engine, because you only see it right at the start, and then the smoke is clear, you can't see it. And so it's like everyone, no matter where they were on the boat, had that same thought of kind of like the gun, at the start of a race, where here we go, this is the beginning of a new adventure of something exciting and wonderful that's about to happen. How's this all going to play out? And so to me, this was one of those moments where everyone was relating. And here's me leaving the Cutter Stone, brimming with excitement and inspiration and just full of all these things that I can paint now for years and years to come, but also realizing that this was just the tip of the iceberg and that I learned so much. It's like what they say, where the more you learn, the less you know, that I would have to go on many more deployments, and I hope I do. I hope if anybody knows of one, I'm game. But I'd have to go on so much more to learn, so much more to. I mean, it's just a legacy that I never knew I wanted, and I'm excited for it. And this is the end of my talk, but I'm hoping that you all will consider, whether you're a civilian, whether you're in the military, whether you're in Salmagundi Club or not, doesn't matter who you are or what you are. If you want to try and create art for the Coast Guard Art Program, Google Coast Guard Art Program or go to the Salmagundi website, and we would love to have you, and we'd love to have your art be part of our collection. Thank you all for your time. Thank you for your service, and I hope that my sharing my experience with you was at least entertaining.